MS, we're of course talking about multiple sclerosis for those who don't know. Do you want to give like a little bit of an overview of just what that is and how many people it affects and how it affects them?
Sure, yeah. So multiple sclerosis, it's a neurological degenerative disease and it affects about 2.6 million people around the world. There's a ratio of 3 to 1 women, and there's 3 different types. There's relapse remitting, which was the one I was diagnosed with. There's secondary progressive and primary progressive. And it's interesting because no 2 MS diagnoses are the same. And so somebody might suffer with mobility issues. For somebody else, it might be optic neuritis or debilitating fatigue or brain fog. For me, it was numbness. I couldn't see in one eye, extreme pain, like so much stuff going on. But I suppose the disease itself, because there's no definitive path of, if you get another disease like cancer or something else like that, it's like, here's the treatment, this is what's going to happen. They can see a definitive path. With MS, it's like, well, we don't know. It might not get worse. It might get really worse. And so there's a huge amount of anxiety when somebody gets diagnosed, because not only do they have the diagnosis, but there's like a complete being out of control because they don't know what's around the corner for them at all. It was not long after I had my second daughter, Sadie, who's now almost 11. And I was showering and I was drying my hair and I realized I couldn't feel the heat on my head. So I started touching both sides of my body and realized the entire right side was numb. Now, a few days before that, I did have numbness in my 2 fingers and up my forearm, and I did go to the hospital and ask because I thought, I knew I didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I was sent home and said, you've probably slept on it funny. And because the doctor was really good looking, I was like, okay, that's fine. And I went home and that was okay. But getting out of the shower this time, and I knew when I couldn't feel the right hand side of my body, I was wondering then, did I have a stroke? Am I having a stroke? Is it a heart attack? Like, what's going on? So I packed a bag silently. I didn't even tell my partner at the time and got myself to the emergency room. And this time they took me straight away down for an MRI. And I remember they took me down in a wheelchair. And I remember thinking, oh, there's something not right here. So I was extremely claustrophobic, so they had to give me a Xanax. And I was in the machine for like about an hour because they were doing it on the spine and on the brain and all the rest. And I remember these hot tears in my eyes when I was in the MRI machine thinking, just let it be okay. Like, whatever it is, just come on, you're going to be okay. But also like, it's that, not being able to move and you can feel your own emotion coming out. It was a tough moment to be present with. Anyway, they took me back out, they brought me back up and they wheeled me into a smaller room. And that's when I was like, okay, something really serious here. And I remember a really well-dressed doctor coming in a 3-piece suit and saying, Ms. Dwyer, the number of lesions on your brain would be normal for an 80-year-old. He said, there's severe demyelination there. And of course I had been Googling and MS and demyelination come up and I said, is it multiple sclerosis? And he kind of looked at me pissed off saying, well, how do you know? And I held up my phone. He was like, well, actually the likelihood is that it is. We're going to keep you in and do a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture, but it's most likely, like it's 99% MS. So they kept me in